What's up, guys? What are the chances of the top 5 players at each position from last year finish as top 5 again this year? Well, stay tuned to find out. Sit back, recline, because you are just in time. Cue the intro. Alright, let's jump right into it. Every year you got your top players, but how often can they repeat? If he finishes number 1 last year, is he going to finish number 1 this year? Today we're going to look at the top 5 players at each position from last year and what are the probabilities of them all repeating. So, top 5 quarterbacks from last year, right? You got Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers. Out of all those players, who's less likely to repeat as a top 5 quarterback? Aaron Rodgers. Let's look at the reasons why. Josh Allen and Justin Herbert are probably going to be 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks next year based off of their rushing ability, their passing ability. They're going to lead the league. They're probably 2 of the top 5 players, highest odds to lead the league in passing. You're going to be looking at least 30 to 35 touchdowns from each player on top of the rushing upside. 2 high-powered offenses. You got the GOAT, Tom Brady. I mean, you're never going to bet against Tom Brady, He could be 45 years old to 50 years old. I'm still going to not bet against him. And then you got Patrick Mahomes, the golden boy. He did lose his number 1 receiver in Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. But I still think that he has a very high probability of, landing in that top 5. He's going to throw for 4,000 to 4,500 yards. He's going to, dance around that 40 touchdown. It doesn't really matter who his weapons are. He's going to get his number. So I think Aaron Rodgers has the least probability of repeating as a top 5 quarterback. All right, let's look at the reasons why. So he lost his number 1 receiver. He lost Devontae Adams. Obviously, Devontae Adams got traded to the Las Vegas Raiders in the offseason. He has very limited weapons. I mean, he's damn near playing with a JV squad and, your brother's nephews. He's good, but he's not that good. Very limited rushing upside, right? His legs aren't with him. He's going to get you, on average, 10 to maybe 30 rushing yards a game, if that. That's best case possibility. At his age, he really doesn't want to get out of the pocket and run. What he wants to do is sling it. He wants to get rid of the ball. He wants to hit his open guys. He doesn't want to do too much with his legs, right? So age isn't just a number. So you can sit here and say, when was the last time Aaron Rodgers wasn't good, right? I mean, he's been the MVP of the league last 2 years in a row. So you can sit here and say, well, is he really declining? Well, at the end of the day, once again, age isn't a number. Everybody hits that cliff except for Tom Brady. So, it's coming. And is it going to be this year? It's a very, very possible with the weapons that he has. It's a very possibility you're going to see a decline in his work. He wanted the money. He didn't want the weapons. So now that's his bet. He has to lie in it, right? And you can sit here and say, he's been a top 5 quarterback for, 15 years in the league, right? But his ceiling has been obtained. He doesn't have any room to grow, right? He didn't get any weapons. He's got very limited weapons on his offense. He doesn't really have a high upside as far as, passing the ball. And once again, we see how limited he is rushing the ball, right? So out of the top 5 quarterbacks, I do think that Aaron Rodgers has the least probability of repeating as a top 5 quarterback in 2022. As far as the running backs go, last year you had Jonathan Taylor finish as number 1. You had Austin Eckler finish number 2. You had Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, and James Conner running out the top 5. So I really struggled to pick between these players. But if I had to choose one of these players to fall out of the top 5, I would probably say it's going to be Najee Harris. And here's the reasons why. He's got a question mark at quarterback. Is it going to be the rookie quarterback? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? Is it going to be Mitch Trubisky? And if it is going to be Mitch Trubisky, what does he have left in the tank? Last time we saw him was in Buffalo. He didn't look very good. He did sit behind Josh Allen last year. You got to think that Josh Allen, I'm sure, taught him a few things. But, how much upside does this guy have? The O-line, did it get better? They did draft a couple of players to try to, make their line a little bit better. They did trade for a couple of players to try to address that offensive line and that offensive needs. But, they're still bottom half of the league, top 25 at very best. He's going to run into a lot of same problems. He's going to get fed the ball and he's going to get targets. He's going to, have close to 350 opportunities. But at the same time, all those opportunities, are they good opportunities? We're willing to see. He plays in a tough division, right? So you're looking at the Baltimore Ravens. You're looking at the Cleveland Browns. You're looking at Cincinnati Bengals. And they're clearly the fourth best team in that division, right? So you're going to be trailing for, the better part of half the year. Are the dump-offs guaranteed? Once again, with the question mark at QB, Mr. Trubisky is an athlete. So is he going to dump the ball off to Najee Harris if he gets in trouble, or is he going to want to run the ball for 10 yards trying to get the first down? Same thing with Kenny Pickett. He's a rookie quarterback, so you like to think that running backs and tight ends are their best friend, but at the same time, he is an athlete. So I don't know if he's going to get, the 94 targets that he got last year, which could limit his upside. So once again, I'm not saying Najee Harris is going to be a bust, but what I'm saying is out of the top 5 running backs from last year, he most likely has the toughest road to get back in those top 5 players. So let's look at the top 5 receivers from last year. You had Cooper Kupp, who had one of the most amazing receiving seasons in NFL history. You had Devontae Adams, you had Deebo Samuel, you had Justin Jefferson, and you had Jamar Chase. Once again, out of these top 5 players, who's least likely to jump into the top 5 once again in 2022? I went with Deebo Samuel. Now, once again, same thing like Pittsburgh. He's looking at a question mark at quarterback. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be on the team this year? Are they waiting for him to get healthy and then trade him? Or are they just not satisfied with Trey Lance? If they do go with Trey Lance, how, what are they going to do with Trey Lance? Do they want him to mold the offense to his, abilities? Do they want him to run the ball? They want it to be a run and gun offense. What do we have with Trey Lance? No one really knows. If Jimmy is the quarterback, you'd like to think that Deebo is going to get peppered with targets once again. But the likelihood of Deebo and Jimmy Garoppolo being on the same team this year, slim to none, right? So, injury concern. Deebo did have a great year last year, which got him paid. But he does have a huge injury history in the NFL. He's played multiple years. He's only played a full season, not even one time. He hasn't played 16 games in any one of his seasons. So he's good to miss multiple games in his season. Missing a game here and there is one thing, but the amount of punishment and the way that he plays, he's glutton for punishment. His injury concern is way higher than any one of these other receivers. Once again, a lot of his production came from rushing. He had more touchdowns rushing the ball than receiving touchdowns last year. As a receiver, he actually led the team in rushing touchdowns last year. Now, out of the offseason, his big thing was he doesn't like the way that he's used in the offense. He wanted to get paid, and he didn't want to be used that much as a running back. He wanted to lengthen his career. So if you're talking a high percentage of his fantasy points came from the rushing upside last year, if he doesn't want to put that same work and effort into the game plans of this year, is that production still going to be there? Can he still be a top 5 receiver solely as a receiver? Just like, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase clearly can. What's the role in the offense? Once again, coming in with a new quarterback, possibly coming in with a new game plan. Deebo doesn't want to be the high end. He doesn't want to be the wide receiver 1 and the running back 1 of the team. He's clearly stated that. And he's going to do all he can to not make that happen. So once again, if he doesn't have that role as a running back and that upside as a running back in the offense, can he still be a top 5 receiver solely on receiving? He had, over 1,400 yards receiving last year, now, which is really good. But, once again, that's, on the back of 9 rushing touchdowns. That's a lot of fantasy production that could be missing from next year. So, once again, out of the top 5 receivers, I do think that Deebo Samuel has the least probability of gaining back into the top 5 receivers of 2022. And last but not least, let's look at the top tight ends from last year. So the top 5 tight ends, you finally had someone dethrone Travis Kelce last year with Mark Andrews leading the way. Travis Kelce was a short second. By no means did he have a bad year. You had Dalton Schultz as a tight end 3. You had George Kittle as a tight end 4. And you had Zach Ertz, even with the trade, falling into the top 5 as a tight end 5. So out of all these players, who do you think is going to have the least probability of gaining into the top 5 tight ends of 2022? It's got to be Dalton Schultz. The offense is predicated on the run, right? We know Jared. We know the Cowboys. They want to give the ball to Zeke. They want to set up the play action pass with Dak. Let's look at all these names, right? Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Zach Ertz. They've all been there before. You could say that Dalton Schultz had an outlier year. You know, Zeke was hobbled for most of the year. You had Amari Cooper, who was hobbled for a lot of the year. He had a bad year. CeeDee Lamb didn't live up to projections. The Cowboys led the league with #1 in scoring offense last year in 2021. So all those things had to go right for Dalton Schultz to become a top 5 tight end. Is that going to happen again this year? It's highly unlikely. He also played all 17 games and had 100+ targets. He is a strong candidate for 100+ targets this year. You know, they did get rid of Amari Cooper. They did lose Cedric Wilson. Michael Gallup did get a big payday, but he was injured. Is he going to be ready for the start of the year? So you could say that, you know, CeeDee Lamb is the guy, and there's arguments that say that Dalton Schultz is the #2 receiver option for the Dallas Cowboys. But once again, a lot of things had to go right last year for him to fall into the top 5, right? Now, once again, when you look at those top 5 names, you got, you know, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Zach Ertz. There's some names that might be missing, right? You got Darren Waller, who got hurt, Gronk, who barely missed out in the top 5. You had Kyle Pitts, who compared to Kyle Pitts is going to be #1 in the offense. Dalton Schultz is not the #1 in his offense, right? So you have multiple names that could easily climb into that top 5. I do think Mark Andrews is still going to be there. I do think Travis Kelce is still going to be there. George Kittle, you know, once again, depending on the QB change, he's definitely going to be up there. Zach Ertz has a role in that offense. He did get paid on the offseason. They want to continue using Zach Ertz, even though they drafted a tight end, #1 tight end in the draft. They still want to use Zach Ertz. So, you know, once again, out of the top 5 players, I mean, you'd have to think that Dalton Schultz has the least probability of getting back into that top 5 of the tight ends. Now, I'm not saying, you know, once again, he's going to have a bad year. I do think he's going to finish top 10. But as a top 5 tight end, it's hard to see. Alright, guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Follow the socials. Hit the notification squad so you can be just in time. Check you later.